HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
The EU CELAC summit opened in Brussels today with Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie addressing pertinent issues affecting the region. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Saunders.
And I'm Charisma Robinson. The high-level talks focuses on bi-regional and global issues and underscores the importance of EU CELAC cooperation in a rapidly changing world. Arpa Roach reports from Belgium tonight that the Prime Minister addressed the summit in his portfolio as chairman of CARICOM, calling on his counterparts to deepen political dialogue in pushing for change.
A strong message from the nation's chief to global leaders attending the EU CELAC summit here in Brussels. Now the event brings together government heads from the European Union, Latin American states and the Caribbean to address issues of concern. In addressing the group, Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie highlighted the challenges faced in the Bahamas in relation to transnational crimes.
We spoke about the need for increased security and understanding that because of an accident of geography, the Caribbean and the Bahamas sort of in the lanes between the producing countries and the consuming country, and that these drugs are not intended for our countries but to get into the larger markets of the United States of America, and that we are compelled to spend our resources to take all sorts of steps to fight against these scourges. It's important that we bring that to the world's attention and to be able to ensure that the European Union, in their efforts to make contributions through CELAC to the region, would be aware of that.
Now, Mr. Christie also drew attention to the vexing issue of illegal migration. And while this is a thorny issue, Mr. Christie called on EU and CELAC to strike a balance.
The illegal migration continues right up to this very moment in the Bahamas, and it is something that we have to deal with, and why it became important for us is to be able to say to countries of the world, bear this in mind, that as you talk about migration, we even argue that it's a problem in Europe, and therefore all of us should inform our public policy to be able to make interventions to stop it or minimize it from happening.
The Prime Minister also talked about climate change, suggesting that the Bahamas could be in jeopardy.
If the sea rises 5 feet, 80% of the Bahamas as we know it would be underwater. So luckily and happily for us, the G7 group of countries have just recently committed themselves to climate change and all that is necessary on that. I argue today on behalf of the Bahamas and the region that those countries that emit must move to protect and to stop, minimize in terms of that.
Now, the Prime Minister called on the global leaders to work together in addressing these pressing concerns. At the EU CELAC summit in Brussels, I'm Opal Roach, ZNS Network News.
Thanks so much, Opal. Foreign Affairs and Immigration Minister the Honourable Fred Mitchell also attending the high-level talks in Belgium this week and noted that the issue between the Dominican Republic and Haiti will be a hot button on the agenda Thursday.
What's coming up is a big discussion tomorrow with the Dominican Republic present, and there's a huge issue with the Dominican Republic where they, after the fact, took away the vested right of people to citizenship, and that's caused a huge row within CARICOM and between CARICOM and themselves, and so that's going to be issue number one tomorrow.
Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Works and Urban Development, the Honourable Philip Davis, and his delegation returned to the Bahamas, excited about the conversations that took place as a part of the 6th International Infrastructure Investment and Construction Forum and the first China CELAC Infrastructure Cooperation Forum last week in Macau. Mr. Davis said the dialogue with Chinese officials gave their Bahamian counterparts the opportunity to not only address areas such as loan financing for future projects, tourism issues, transportation, infrastructural development, tourism, agriculture, education, and energy, but also to discuss investment opportunities available here. Mr. Davis said the team will soon meet to make recommendations to Prime Minister Christie and the Cabinet based on the information derived from those talks. Mr. Davis also met on a number of other matters of pertinent interest to the country on behalf of the Prime Minister, along with the people of the Bahamas. Minister of Labour and National Security, the Honourable Shane Gibson, addressed the 104th session of the International Labour Conference in Geneva, Switzerland today, and that was where the government committed $20 million in its current budget to reduce youth unemployment. He added that the government is implementing programs to reduce the skills gap in the country and reduce the abuse of child laborers nationwide. The Labour Minister also revealed the government's programs in line with ILO best practices. First, the country, through the Occupational Health and Safety Unit, has tried to reduce workplace accidents, industrial injuries, and the loss of productive working hours. He also pointed out that BAMSI is improving the agricultural field in the country as well. The minister pointed also that the Bahamas is first in the region to pass legislation aimed at protecting those with disabilities and reducing discrimination against those with disabilities.
Special day for some special students, a part of a special class. I'm Clint Watson. We'll tell you all about it coming up in the Bahamas tonight.
And a senior policeman to be laid to rest this week. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by the new Shell and Leaded, designed for extra miles.